Hello and welcome to another episode of Two Guys and a Chainsaw. I'm Todd.
And I'm Craig.
Craig, you picked this week's movie. It is 2022. It's fresh. It's fresh on the menu.
You're so stupid.
What's wrong with me? I don't know. You do this week after week. We're on our 342nd episode right now.
Jeez.
Can I shake it up a little bit? Try to be original? Is there any originality?
Try, I guess.
Is there any originality left in the world anymore? Segue into this week's movie, The Menu, 2022, directed by Mark Mylod and starring of bevy of famous actors, not the least of which Ralph Fiennes. And I don't know if there's a single movie in the last 2 decades that's been amazing that he hasn't been in. This guy's everywhere. It's crazy. And this movie, I'd never even heard of it before, but that's mostly because I'm in China, so I'm kind of out of the loop with movies. But you recommended it. What made you decide to do this week?
I don't remember why I picked it for this week, but I remember when it came out, I remember seeing trailers. I don't remember. It must have been on some streaming service. They were showing trailers, and it looked interesting. And just one of the good things about this movie is even in their advertising, they didn't reveal a whole lot. You could tell that it was going to be suspenseful. You could tell that the stakes were going to be high. There was one line, it's a funny line in the movie, where one character says, no, we're going to die tonight. And another character's like, oh yeah, definitely. That line was in it, so I knew the stakes were going to kind of be high, but that's kind of it as far as the premise went. But it looked really well made, and it's got a pretty amazing cast.
It's remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, the people, I hesitate to say that they're not A-list stars, because they are, really, most of them. But they are not, some of them are not your typical leads. You'll know virtually everybody in this cast. You'll recognize virtually everybody in this cast. And they're all fantastic. And I like that about the movie, too. It feels, even though it focuses on a couple of main characters, it really feels like an ensemble piece.
Yes, it does.
And I was interested and invested in all of the characters.
Yeah.
So, and that, I think that says a lot about a movie, because it's a big cast. So to be invested and interested in all of them, I think that says something good.
No, I think you're right. I mean, all very experienced actors, and the acting in this movie is fantastic. Even though the premise is absurd and hilarious, this movie's a very, very dark comedy, basically. Mm-hmm. So dark that it actually bothered me a little bit. The last time I watched a movie that was such a dark comedy that it kind of got under my skin and I had a hard time falling asleep the next day was Very Bad Things. Do you remember that one? Back in the 90s?
No.
Did you ever see that?
I don't know.
God. It's like about a bachelor party gone awry, where somebody gets killed and then horrible things just start happening after that. And it's like you want to laugh, but the things that are happening are so bad that you feel icky. And this movie really toyed with maybe I'm just a sensitive guy, but this movie really toyed with me back and forth. I had to keep reminding myself, this is not real. This is a comedy. It's so parody. I mean, it's such a comedy that I've read some criticisms online that say it's a bit too much. There are people that complain that it's just too on the nose, but I don't agree. I mean, it is very on the nose, but I thought the aesthetic was great. I thought that was a fine movie because of it. And because these cooking shows and this whole culture of foodies or whatever that it's parodying are very much like that. Don't get me wrong, I love cooking shows. And I love watching travel series about food in different places. And I have watched documentaries about Noma and at least 2 or 3 of the other famous, hot cuisine, innovative, crazy out there restaurants that this movie is parodying. And so while I was watching it, I was quite giddy, because I felt like this is definitely in my interest, even though I don't myself, I also think it's silly.
Think what was.
that this kind of cuisine is a little silly. Like, I like the idea that there are people out there doing crazy things with food and making weird, odd presentation because it's like art. It's like
Right.
it's like food is art in a way. So I like that. In the same sense, like, I don't buy in that this is very important to society. I don't buy in that, and I think there's a very like a class element to it where this is only accessible for very, very rich people,
Right.
and so it kind of ends up becoming quite pretentious, and so that's not my class. I don't know. Maybe if I was a very, very rich person, I hung out with my peers in that way, then I would think differently about it. But and the same level I would want to eat at a place like Noma, I would probably be chuckling the whole time through, So I really related to everything this movie was trying to say from that sort of social commentary angle. And I just loved it. I just really enjoyed that aspect of it because at the one hand, I was fascinated by even the dishes and,
Right.
the environment and the chef's attitude and everybody's attitude there. At the same time, I had no problem laughing at it because I thought, yeah, it's like they're reading my mind. I make fun of these people all the time.
Sure.
And I want to hope I'm not one of them, I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say is this is heavy on social commentary.
Yeah.
Some people have criticized it as being too heavy. I don't agree. I think that's the whole point. I think the things that they're commenting are themselves ripe for parody. So, you get a huge pass there. And I don't think anybody's really done a horror movie like this before in this territory. So I kind of liked it.
Oh, no, I've seen. See, that's the thing. Gosh.
What have you seen?
That was a lot, what you just said.
Sorry. You got to respond to my verbal diarrhea here.
That's going to be hard because there were like 15 times where I wanted to jump in, but you were just on a roll. So I wanted to let you go. But I feel like right here out of the gate, you're kind of getting into what the heart of the movie is. Like, yes, it's a movie about food, and culinary culture and foodie culture and all of that stuff. And food as art and who is consuming that because it's limited to a very specific audience. Like,
Right.
That is specifically the impetus of the movie. But I think the reason that I don't know, I don't think it affected me as much as it did you, but it made me think a lot. I really felt like this movie was a thinker because I think that the food element of it is meant to be representative of any art form that one may be passionate about.
Sure. It's about passion, yeah.
Right. So whereas you say you kind of chuckle at, these fancy, platings and things. And I do too, even though I really do appreciate the beauty of it. Yeah. Like I do look at it like art. And frankly, that's usually the only way that I get to consume it because I see it on TV. So I don't know if this food tastes good or not, but it sure does look pretty. I actually do appreciate that. But if you chuckle at it, do you also chuckle at like modern abstract art? Like an 8x8 white canvas with a red square in the corner and a splash of blue on the side? Like,
I do, but it's a qualified chuckle. You know what I'm saying? I think it's silly sometimes when you go to an art gallery and the artist's piece
there's a banana nailed to the wall.
Yeah, is taped to the wall. And then it becomes almost like a commentary on itself. And it's like, this is actually a commentary on art because art sometimes is stupid. And so we're doing this stupid thing, And I buy into all that. I get it. I think it's kind of crazy that people are lining up around the block to go stare at a banana that's been duct taped to the wall. I mean, I read about it. I saw a picture of it. Do I want to be there in person? Do I need to be there in person to see it and pay like a whole bunch of money to do that? Probably not. And I think at some level, there's a part of me that's just a little uncomfortable at getting too serious about it. Because at the end of the day, art is art. And while we all appreciate it, and I think art is very important. I mean, God, you and I will, I think are totally on the same page.
Oh yeah, of course.
Here,
yeah,
we think art is the soul of humanity, really.
Yeah.
That being said, on an individual case by case basis, like what's more important? There are bigger fish to fry in the world. There's people who are starving who can't even get anything to eat.
Right.
And so then you've got people on the other end who are paying, several thousands of dollars to eat, 6 morsels of food that are prepared by a team of 12 chefs who are being worked to the bone over tiny, tiny little details, not getting any sleep, under chefs who are very notoriously demanding and angry and abusive.
Right.
Over what? So that these rich people can have a spoonful of some essence of something or whatever that's put into a little pellet or whatever. And like I said, I appreciate the effort. I appreciate the thought. I appreciate the artistry of it. But in sort of the greater social scheme, which again, like you said, this movie's commenting on this kind of thing, I don't want to get too obsessive about it lest I kind of like lose my grounding in life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I understand what you're saying, and that's what the movie is talking about, or at least in part. Oh gosh, I don't know how to say it without kind of jumping to the end, but it's about, who has access to this food or who has access to this art, and in what way do they appreciate it, if at all. But what I'm saying, and I think that you were kind of saying the same thing, is that art is subjective and we don't all appreciate it in the same way. Like, I usually think that whoever taped the banana to the wall, I think that those artists are trolling much in the way that the chef in this movie is trolling.
Right.
Kind of. You know what I mean?
He's definitely trolling, yeah.
Right. But I also think that there are some people who are very passionate about their art, and maybe I just don't understand it or appreciate it, but they really are passionate about it. It's difficult to tell the difference.
Right.
You said the last thing, you said, I don't think I've ever seen a movie like this before. I have seen probably, I don't know, a handful of movies about people who are so passionate about their art and so competitive about their art that it drives them to lunacy.
Sure.
Like Black Swan, or there was a movie on Netflix, I think, called The Perfection, with these competing instrumentalists. I don't remember if they played the piano or the violin or what. Showgirls.
Well, yeah.
You get what I'm saying. Like,
I know what you mean.
People who are so passionate about their art that they will go to whatever means necessary to accomplish what they want to accomplish, or make their point, or whatever.
I mean, at some level, like most of the serial killer type horror movies or something like that, are about somebody who's passionate about something, whether it's literally killing people, whether it's women, whether, they feel like they're in the wrong skin or something. I mean, yeah. And then, knock that down a little bit and talk about it restricted just to art. Okay, yeah, there are definitely movies like that too. And then if you knock it down another level and take it to the kitchen and hot cuisine like this, that's what I was talking about. I don't think the only other movie I can think of that has kind of dealt with this very specific subject matter in this way is, I think, is a Peter Greenaway movie called The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover. Have you ever seen that?
No.
I would almost call it a horror movie. It's maybe not. It's more a drama, tragic drama kind of thing, although it has a more horrific ending. But it takes place in a high-end French restaurant with a couple foodies, and there's a couple who meets up in secret here at this restaurant. The whole movie almost never leaves this restaurant, and then it kind of goes to sinister ends. But in terms of this very specific subject matter, I don't know if I've really seen it before. So
there's a movie that you should watch called The Platform, which is also a movie that uses food as a metaphor for the haves and have-nots. It's a really cool movie.
That's not the one where people are on different platforms and trying to is it? Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know that had anything to do with food.
Yeah, because what it is it's this prison, but the cells are stacked vertically, and every day food descends from the top. And it's like all of this amazing gourmet food prepared much in the same way that this food is here, like with ultimate care. And it's just this enormous platform of all this gourmet food, but as it descends, you just have to grab whatever you can, and you have to eat it right then. You can't save anything. You have to eat it. But it continues to descend. So the people at the top
get whatever they want.
Well, they get great food, but the people 100 and some things down get scraps or whatever.
Interesting.
But it's because it becomes a metaphor about the haves and the have-nots, and they realize, of course, people down below realize that if the people up above would just ration, then there would be plenty of food for everybody, but they don't, and so it becomes a whole societal thing. It's a great movie, but that's not the movie we're talking about. The movie we're talking about is The Menu.
Yes.
And there are many, many things that I like about this, so I should just start with some of the easy ones. I think that it's just beautifully shot.
Oh, yeah.
It just looks fantastic. It's a lot of close-up work because it's very character-driven, but the environments look great. And, of course, this is direction, but also, design as well. But the locations look fantastic. Like, it starts out on this dock, and we meet our main characters. And, I don't even know, like... If you haven't figured it out yet, I really liked this movie.
Me too.
And I feel like there's so much to say about it that I don't know where to start. That's why I'm trying to get the little things out of the way. We'll come back to the dock in just a second. But this group of people take a ferry over to an island to go to this exclusive restaurant. It's only accessible by the ferry. It's super exclusive, it's super, super expensive, whatever. And this whole group of people's going. And the island that they go to looks beautiful. Like they all walk down the beach that's all, like covered in like huge driftwood and stuff. It looks remote and fantastic. And then, they walk like through this compound. It's just this beautiful landscaped island.
They're led by a woman. She's very stern and very... it's Elsa, right? The kind of the chef's assistant, I suppose.
I wouldn't say she's so much stern as she's just very cool.
Matter of fact, and cool.
Yeah. But it's kind of, she's, I guess, the maitre d'? Is that what we would call her?
I don't know these terms.
Or maybe she's the chef's assistant or something. I don't know. But she's like one down below. Maybe she's head of house or something. I don't know, whatever.
Like the most trusted or whatever of the chef.
Right, exactly. The right-hand man. And she's cool. She's great. The actress Hong Chow, who plays her, is great. I love her character. And then they go into this restaurant, which is where we spend most of the time. And it's a seaside restaurant, so one whole wall is windows, glass that looks out over the beach. It's beautiful. And then it's very minimal and kind of modern with just round tables, in the one dining area. And then behind that is the open kitchen so that they can see everything being prepared. And it all looks great. It's all shot great. Every time the staff in the kitchen is cooking, they are actually cooking the actual dishes. Like they were trained to do this. And so it looks authentic. Like you said, these cooking shows are immensely popular. I love them. I watch them. And it feels very authentic. It looks great. All right, so that's me getting the little stuff out of the way.
Very nice. Well, they brought in, quite a few consultants for this who had worked on cooking shows, so, to help with the photography. There are moments in here where as they serve the dishes, you get these like close-up shots of the food with little title cards and everything, just like you get on these cooking shows or these travel shows. It's just wonderful. And the first thing I thought of, because I've had a bit of a fascination with it, because I used to own a restaurant at one time, and so my head was really knee deep into what kind of food are we going to make? What's our menu going to be? What's our kitchen look like? What directions are we going to go with it? And so, I've seen some documentaries about this end, like Noma, and I've read a lot of the news, and I kind of keep up on it just a little bit. Like I said, not because I'm not really that obsessed, but I just think it's very interesting.
Sure.
One of the writers of the movie, Will Tracy, said that he came up with the idea when he was in Norway on his honeymoon, and he did something similar to this, where he took a boat to this really upscale restaurant on a private island, and then realized that they were basically stuck there until the meal was done. And this was like in Norway. And a lot of what you see, like the design of the dining room and the way the layout is and stuff, is very similar to Noma, which is maybe one of the most, it's been rated as like probably the best restaurant in the world. Once again, depends on your perspective of what best restaurant's going to be. But anyway, they invest a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of energy into really innovating. And that I think is in Copenhagen. And it's interesting that I think shortly after this movie was released, I'm not saying it had anything to do with the release of this movie, but just at some point late last year, the chef who owned Noma closed it down, and he said that this is unsustainable. You know, he said it's stressful for everybody involved. The amount of money is crazy, and all for what? He just started to feel like morally challenged as the years went on with trying to sustain this kind of restaurant in this way. And when you see this all on the screen, you know, you can tell this is like private island. They've got their own smokehouse. They raise their own things. I think it's funny that another kind of running gag through the show is that there's a Frenchish style waiter who comes by, like he's the sommelier, and he's showing them wine. And at one point, I think he has this like strong French accent that gradually disappears as the movie goes on. But at one point, he shows them some wine, and he said, "This isn't just from a specific year and vineyard, but this is from a specific vine on a specific like thing." Just really cute the way that this calls to this whole culture. And this very, very upscale, you know, type of experience that can only be sustained with a lot of people paying a lot of money and investing a lot of time into these things that they deem must be important to get the ultimate experience. And all of these guests who come here on this boat are looking for the ultimate experience. One of them has been there many times, and one of them is a food critic.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of them is just a movie star with his assistant. That's John Leguizamo.
Then there's the Entourage boys.
The bros. The Entourage bros, yeah. Like, clearly got some startup going in Silicon Valley, right?
Yeah.
But it mostly focuses around the story of this couple, Tyler and Margot. And Margot is played by Anya Taylor-Joy, who everybody recognizes from the chess movie, right?
Oh, God, I don't know. She's been in everything.
She has been, especially since then, yeah. The Queen's Gambit.
She was in The Witch. I think The Witch was her first movie. She was the main girl.
We saw that in the theater together, didn't we?
We did. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did. And I think she is fantastic.
She's great.
I think that I've seen her in a lot of stuff. She works a lot. But I think she has, not only is she very talented, but she's gorgeous, but she has just a really unique look. She has really big eyes. And I think that works so well in this role.
Yeah.
Because she sees things that other people don't see. It's so stupid.
Look at that.
But no, it's fantastic. She's great. It was originally supposed to be Emma Stone, and I love Emma Stone, but I think they got the right gal here.
Yeah.
And Tyler is played by Nicholas Hoult, who's been working since he was a little boy.
Yeah.
And is still working. Renfield.
In the new.
He stars in Renfield that comes out with Nick Cage
mm-hmm.
next week, I think. Like he's been everywhere.
He's been in a few X-Men. I think he's Beast in X-Men, several of the X-Men movies and things. He was in Mad Max, Fury Road, and a lot of stuff. He's got a very familiar look, yeah.
And he's good too, and he plays a really interesting character.
Mm-hmm.
The food critic is played by, her name is Lillian, and she's played by Janet McTeer. Did you watch Ozark? You probably didn't. You're not big into TV.
No.
She was on Ozark, and she played a badass, and she's good in this movie too. The movie star, who isn't even really given a name, is John Leguizamo.
Yeah.
I just think is great.
Yes.
And he's playing kind of a washed up movie star, and he based his performance on Steven Seagal because he has worked with Steven Seagal and hates him.
Seems to be a common theme with people who've worked with Steven Seagal.
Yeah, right. And then his assistant, like you said, and then the older couple, Richard, who's played by Reed Birney. I didn't look him up. He's very familiar. His wife, Anne, played by Judith Light.
Oh, my goodness.
We are experiencing a Judith Light renaissance, and I am here for it.
It's crazy. Judith Light.
She is popping up everywhere.
What is with that?
I don't know, but I think she's fantastic.
She's always been.
I think she is an excellent, excellent actress. So I am happy to see her.
We of course grew up with her on Who's the Boss as Angela.
Right.
And when you really go back and look at her performance, she's a fantastic actress. She's really good. And she's great in this too. Yeah, so she deserves a renaissance.
She's popping up in TV. I just saw her in an episode of Poker Face. She was really good in that. Gosh, I don't know. I've been seeing her all over the place. And not only is she a good actress, but she's really versatile. She's a really versatile actress, and she plays a different kind of character in this. Whereas usually, because of her stature, she's usually kind of a dominating presence.
She's a tall gal.
And she's got a big persona, too. But in this, she's meek, and I get the feeling that she's just kind of beaten down by life.
Mm-hmm.
And she just, I love her.
And she and her husband are like they're clearly like they're coming here. They clearly have money, but their relationship, their clearly years-long relationship, is a bit on the rocks. You just get these hints every now and then.
They've been married for 40, 50 years. That's what happens.
It's going to happen. No judgment here. Trust me, for me, absolutely no judgment. But, that's their thing, right? Every table's kind of got their thing.
Right.
There's the dude bro guys, who've got some thing going. There's this guy. Well, the thing is, they've all been more or less chosen to come here.
They've been invited.
Yeah.
Right, which is weird. Oh, gosh. And I don't know how to go about it. Because
it's hard, right?
Twists, and I don't.
It's just reveals.
Right. Because Tyler and Margot, there are just little things that I feel like are important. As soon as we meet them, they're the first person we meet. She's smoking a cigarette.
Babe, please don't smoke. It'll kill your palate.
Then my palate will die happy.
Hey, Margot, tonight is huge, okay? The flavor profiles, it's all super delicate. When you smoke, you ruin your ability to be able to appreciate them. Please.
He's like, well, listen, since I'm the one paying, can you not? And that's totally a normal thing to say.
But it's got another meaning.
Right. Like, and then there's a moment there on the ferry, they're served a boat course. Okay, whatever. It's an oyster, but it's like fancy. There's like some kind of like foam on it and like some like golden caviar or whatever. Tyler pulls out his phone and takes a picture of it and
goes on about it and stuff.
Goes on. Like, it's so pretentious. Like every time that he talks about food, it's just the most pretentious thing.
He's really annoying.
Like this one, he says something like, "It's laughable. It just makes me want to laugh," like like in a good way. Like it's dumb. He's super pretentious, super weird, super obnoxious and annoying. You wonder, you're like, she seems cool.
Yeah.
Why is she with him? He seems so annoying. It's weird. But anyway, okay, so there's that setup with them. But then you're right. I guess I can kind of understand why people would say it's a little bit on the nose, because you've got each table. And really, when it comes down to it, and I didn't come up with this on my own, but I looked it up, and I don't know if it was intended, but it seems it's got weight that, like, there's a representative of each of the deadly sins.
Oh, yeah.
Somewhere in that
I read that, too.
Kitchen.
There's gluttony, there's greed,
And, when you read the explanation, you're like, yeah, that makes sense.
It tracks, yeah.
So...
It's all pretty high concept, And
yeah,
but
that's
like
the thing. I can see. I was just going to say I understand why people could say it's a little bit on the nose, but I think it's intentional. I think it's purposeful.
It's like watching a Naked Gun movie and saying, "Well, that was really dumb." Like, duh.
Yeah.
That's why are you watching this movie if you don't want? I mean, they're trying to be this way. So none of that bothered me at all. In fact, I thought it was a strength of the movie. Like, good for you that you can make a movie like this and get all these stars involved. Well, I think it was executive produced by Will Ferrell and Adam McKay.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it had weight behind it from the very beginning. So I think that's why they were able to get all these stars involved. But yeah, who wouldn't want to be in this sort of high concept horror movie? That kind of skewers. It's an easy target. Pretentious rich people or whatever, and haute cuisine, So, yeah, okay, it's an easy target. Yeah, it's very high concept. Yeah, there's all the symbolism and all this stuff. So what? I like it. That's what makes it fun. That's what I enjoyed about watching it.
Yeah.
If you're coming in here hoping for something super realistic, you're watching the wrong movie because it's a parody.
Right. It is. That being said, I mean, it's set within a world of realism. Like,
Yes.
there's no magic going on behind the scenes here, aside from culinary magic.
Ooh.
But no, like, it could happen, but yeah, I mean, it's far-fetched. It's also, the fact that all of these people were specifically invited, I actually do take issue a little bit with the movie. Now, another important thing to note, I was just looking at my notes, Margot is not supposed to be there.
Right.
We find out when they're checking in with Elsa, Tyler had a different guest, a different woman. But he says something like, oh, something came up, there's a change of plans. And Elsa, like, it's not just like, okay. Like,
Yeah.
it seems like it may be an issue. But they let them in anyway. Take them through the barracks and get them in there. And one of the only rules, like, there really aren't any rules except for one, don't take pictures of the food. And then Tyler continues to take pictures.
All the time.
They can see you. Like, and he kind of acts like he's doing it surreptitiously. No, everybody can see you. Like, Elsa and the chef are looking right at you.
Yeah.
But it starts out normal. I mean, it's very theatrical, and the chef comes out, Ralph Fiennes, and like, he walks to through the kitchen to the dining room, and he stands there and he claps, and the whole kitchen comes to attention. It's very silly, but also totally believable, especially in a restaurant like this, which obviously these kinds of restaurants do exist, where in part you're paying for the show.
Right. Exactly.
Now, it may not be this choreographed in a lot of places, but that's part of the experience. So I get it. He's being theatrical. The critic, who has been to his restaurant before, says this is his deal. He's a theatrical guy. It's part of the experience. Sit back, enjoy it. And they do. Like, they all enjoy it. At first.
Well, and the movie's called The Menu, and just like with music, the album. Like, I don't know. I think nowadays, not as much thought is often put into how you lay out the songs on an album. What comes first, what comes
right.
It used to be an art form to it, and I think some artists still do this, but generally speaking, you got an experience that was meant to be experienced from beginning to end when you listen to say Pink Floyd or even so this is the same way with these kinds of high-end restaurants, right? The idea is that this whole thing tells a story or is meant to evoke a certain experience. And so every little piece of it, none of it's by accident. The whole menu from beginning to end, you're supposed to eat all the way through and experience it. And, it's art.
It is... I hesitate to say this because I do know that people are, passionate about their art, and I'm impressed with the culinary arts, but like the first course is the island, and he announces it and he describes it, and like you said, text comes up on the screen, in fancy script that describes what it is. It's funny, but the island, it's a single scallop served on a pile of rocks with like seaweed and flowers like delicately placed all around
with tweezers.
Does it look beautiful? Yeah. Is it stupid? Mm-hmm. Like,
yeah, it's really dumb.
Give me a pan of scallops, please.
Right. At least more than one. It's funny. I actually worked very closely in my previous job before I went solo. I was working in a marketing with a guy and he was the head of the sales, and he's French, and he invited me over to his house for dinner, and I made this joke about how, what are we gonna eat one scallop on a spoon and all that stuff, and he laughed. He said, I don't know. He says, me and all of my friends joke about why is French cuisine portrayed in shows as being this meal that you're going to leave starving when you're done, because it's absolutely not like that in France. He's like, we eat for 3 hours and we have tons of food on the table. And sure enough, when I went to his house for his birthday, he actually had a friend of his was just a French chef and cooked, and I'd never eaten so much food in my life. I could barely force it down by the end of the evening, only because it had been 3 hours spread out over 3 hours. You can drink a little bit more if you spread it out over a few hours.
Oh, yeah.
So, I think it's even funny how like the reality of the way we eat gets a little twisted by these shows and these kind of experiences. Like there are probably people who assume that, oh, there are people who regularly eat this way all the time, or there are people who this is the only kind of restaurant they go to, or that these restaurants exist in every city, you know, that kind of thing. But I don't think that's true. I think this is very much on the edges of the culinary world, you know, most.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, like, if I had the opportunity, like, I don't have the money.
It'd be fun.
If the opportunity arose, I would totally do it. Like,
yeah, me too.
Yeah, I think it would be super cool. I love that kind of stuff. I would super enjoy sitting there and watching them work in the kitchen. Like, that would be fascinating to me. So I get it, but it's oh God, it's so pretentious.
It's very pretentious.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello.
Welcome to Hawthorne. I'm Julian Slowick, and tonight it'll be our pleasure to feed you.
The curtain rises.
Over the next few hours, you will ingest fat, salt, sugar, protein, bacteria, fungi, various plants and animals, and at times entire ecosystems. But I have to beg of you one thing. It's just one. Do not eat.
Is he serious?
Taste. Savor. Relish. Consider every morsel that you place inside your mouth. Be mindful, but do not eat. Our menu is too precious for that. And look around you. Here we are, on this island. Accept all of it. And forgive. And on that note, food.
What? Get out of me!
These
like
people.
That is ridiculous. and then he goes on. Like, this is a long speech.
Yeah, it's true.
But he ends up saying something like, "What happens inside this room is meaningless compared to what happens outside in nature." And it cuts to Margot's face, and she has kind of a smirk. Like, I think that she's thinking the same thing that we are. Like, this guy is such a douche. And she hears something behind her, and she turns, and Tyler is weeping.
Yes, he's literally crying. Tyler is the one guy in this room that has bought into everything so hook, line, and sinker. So it's hilarious.
Oh, he is so into it.
You want to hate this.
My God.
He's set up from the beginning to be the guy you hate, you know? And that's also quite clever, right? Because then turns out he might be the scummiest of the guests in there. So,
and he's kind of rude to her. I guess that doesn't come for a minute. The next course is the bread course, and this part is crazy too. He gives a long speech about bread, but mostly it's about how, like, bread is common people food. Like, it's been, you know, the source of nutrients for the common people for all this time. So you don't get bread.
You're uncommon people. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not common people, so you don't get bread. You just get the accoutrements. And so he serves them like a Bob Ross paint palette of, like, little teeny tiny dollops of, like, sauce?
Yeah, just different, like, olive oil and herbs and some kind of, like, pate, whatever like that, and all these things. And it's the food critic who looks at one of them. It's like, you know, she's, like, examining it, like, really closely and really carefully because, you know, she's the one who's always remarking to her cohort there. She's super critical about it. And she mentions that the emulsion is broken in one of the sauces. And somebody overhears her say that. And so then one of the chefs serves her a giant bowl of broken emulsion sauce.
Huge.
It's the first time we see something like overtly aggressive happening in this kitchen. But it's a bit of a shocker, right?
Well, that's kind of the first thing, but then Tyler, by the way, is loving it. He just thinks it's genius. And Margot says to him, you know that he's basically insulting you, right? Mm-hmm. And it just goes completely over his head. You know, watching this the first time, nothing seemed out of place or out of sorts. nothing blatantly felt like, oh, there's a double meaning to
Right.
this. But in watching it a second time, it's
Yeah.
so cleverly written.
It
because
is.
things can be, once you know things that are revealed later, going back, you hear lines in different ways.
That's right.
Which I think it's a good movie. Like
Well,
it's really well done.
And I like the dude bro guys who are totally above this.
Yes.
Even though they've paid for this, they're like going to be assholes. Like, we're above this as well. And they call for bread. He's like,
Excuse me.
Is everything to your liking, sir?
Oh, well, actually, no. Thanks for asking. I mean, look, the food's great, and we totally get all the conceptual stuff, but could we please get a little bread, and some gluten-free for my friend as well?
No.
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 Well, yeah, okay. This is all very clever, and I didn't want to pull this card, but you know who we are, right?
Yes.
You do. You know who we are.
I know who you are.
You know we work with Doug Varick, right?
No, you work for Mr. Varick.
Exactly, and so you know we all play on the same team, so just flip us a little bread. Please.
We won't tell a soul, lady. Yeah, I promise, okay?
No.
Did you say no?
I said no, yes.
Okay. Wow.
Okay. That'll be all, though. Thanks.
Elsa leans over into them and says, "You'll eat less than you desire and more than you deserve." And then walks away.
Yeah, and just walks away. Like, she is so ominous. I love her.
It's so cool.
They call her over, and she walks over, very professional, and, how can I help you, gentlemen? And they're like, can we have some bread? No. And they're like, did you say no? Yes. So we're not getting any bread? No.
Right.
Like, she's just so matter of fact about it, and then she's funny about it later. I don't know how best to continue through this because there's like 8 courses or something.
Yeah, we can't talk about the whole thing.
Right, and we learn little things. I think we're just going to have to start talking about the things that we learn as we go along. But
Well, there's an old lady in the corner.
there's an old lady in the corner, and we find out who she is on one of the courses. I don't remember what course it is, but the chef tells this story about. It's about memories or something.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, one of my favorite memories is of Taco Tuesday. When I was a kid, every Tuesday was Taco Tuesday, and my mom would make tacos. But one day, my dad came home drunk, which he always did, but he was especially drunk, and I don't know. He says he got violent or something, so he, the chef, as a little kid, stabbed his dad in the thigh with kitchen scissors. So then the dad had tried to strangle the mom with a phone cord. So he then serves them a dish that's a curled up phone cord with a chicken thigh with scissors stabbed into it.
Right.
But we find out that old woman who's been sitting in the corner quietly, she doesn't say a word through the whole movie. That's his mother. And she's getting drunk. Oh, but I feel like there was something else. Oh, Taco Tuesday. So they're also served tortillas. And he says, this is the very first time we've used this laser etching machine to personalize all of your tortillas. And they arrive, and they are all very personal, and they do reveal things, which we should talk about. But one of my favorite things is the dude bros call Elsa over again and are like, what is this? She's like, those are tortillas. And they're like, what? They are tortillas delicioso.
She's just totally making fun of them. It's hilarious.
Oh my God, it's hilarious. But the tortillas reveal things. Tyler's are etchings of him, like photorealistic etchings of him taking pictures of the food. The elderly couple, it's mostly pictures of them, but there's one picture of the husband
with another woman
dining, I believe, with another woman, a younger woman.
Mm-hmm.
The dude bros, there's some I don't know,
bank forms or
books
something.
or something.
Yeah.
That shows that they've been embezzling or something like that.
John Leguizamo is like an image of a movie he was in, like called Calling Doctor.
Yeah.
Something or other. Sunshine.
Yeah.
And you get the impression as he's talking about it was a pretty bad movie he was in.
Yeah, but I think that part's funny because he's like, He's proud of it. Like, he's like, Dr. Sunshine. So basically what we find out is that they all have secrets. That's finally, then there's a new course, which is somebody's mess. You remember, or it's called The Mess.
It's called The Mess, yeah. Jeremy. The next dish is Jeremy's.
As a viewing audience and knowing kind of what kind of movie you're getting into, you absolutely have, it's 100% clear what's going to happen, because they start laying out tarps, like clear plastic tarps on the floor. They pull clear plastic drapes behind the kitchen, and the chef and this young chef are standing on this tarp. I don't even know, like, I'm not sure I get the point.
This is the part that bothered me. Just the idea of it. Obviously, I know it's a movie. Obviously, I know they're trying to make a point and be funny or whatever. But, like, basically, he stands there and the chef walks around him and says, Jeremy has always wanted to cook with me ever since he was a little kid. And he finally got his chance, and he came here to the kitchen and he was able to work with me because he wants to be as good as me. But you're never going to be as good as me, are you? You're always going to be a lousy cook. You're never going to get any better, blah, blah, blah. Right. And as he's saying this to Jeremy's just like, a soldier at attention. Yes, chef. Yes, chef.
Right.
But also he starts crying and he says, this is Jeremy's own dish, of his own design, The Mess. And then Jeremy pulls out a gun and shoots himself in the mouth. That was stark. And
right. And it's like, because he can never achieve what he dreams to achieve, I guess, just end it. Like,
well, I think that, he's got a little cult thing going here, right? I mean,
oh, totally.
So
because as it comes down to it, they are there to punish all of these people. They are going to feed them all, and then they're all going to die there. Not just the guests, but the staff too. And the staff is 100% on board.
Yeah.
Like, they're just they're down.
And this is I think this is the point. Like I said, look, it's a movie, it's fine, and it's a comedy, it's a very black comedy, and this is the part where it kind of crossed into this territory that made me personally just emotionally feel uncomfortable. Is this kind of shit happens.
Right.
This is like Jonestown. This is like Waco. This is like really disturbing religious cults that do terrible things to children. Like, people get on board with crazy stuff because they have a crazy guy. And I guess we might as well say this guy basically, obviously he's disturbed, but he's reached this point in his career where he feels like nobody appreciates the food anymore. Nobody appreciates what he's doing. People don't taste, right? They don't taste. They just eat. And he's got a whole long list of grievances, and he just thinks they're all the problem. He's got a beef with his angel investor. He's got a beef with, the industry as a whole, and these rich people who he says are takers.
Right.
Whereas he is a giver. So he's like, we're the givers, you're the takers. Almost like these people are insatiable and he's constantly being criticized. Nothing is ever going to be good enough for them, and they're just continually demanding. So that's why he's going to kill himself and everybody else there. Is it kind of final act of revenge?
I know, and it's pretty convoluted. It makes more
sense
in the context of the movie, right? Like, when you watch the movie,
everything's doled out in a way that is palatable. Like
yeah, it is. And I get what he's, high concept. I get what he's going at with the givers and the takers, and how the people who take, the only people who have access to his food are people who don't even really appreciate it, and because of that, he has lost his passion.
Yeah.
He's lost his desire to help people or to serve people, and that's why he's drawn to Margot. He knows right away that she's out of place. Well, first of all, Elsa tells him that she's not the right person, but he can just sense something about her in the way that she stands up to Tyler, in the way that she refuses to eat some things if she doesn't want to, even though he insists. And so much comes to light. But basically what it comes to is he pulls her in the back and he's like, you're not one of them.
I recognize a member of the service industry when I see one.
Right. Exactly. And as it turns out, she's an escort. And again, when you go back and look at the interactions between her and Tyler, it no longer looks like a relationship. Mm-hmm. It looks like a transaction. And everything that they say supports that. I mean, it's just so cleverly done. One of her clients had been the elderly gentleman, and there's a whole messed up, sad story there. No time for it. But he asks her, do you enjoy serving your customers? And she says, I used to. And so they have this kinship, and that, they're both givers, they both live to serve, but they've lost their passion for it.
And he says she needs to make a decision by a certain time. He sets an actual like egg timer or whatever and says you need to make a decision eventually whether you're going to join us on the giving side or stay there on the taking side.
And so much happens.
Yeah.
The old Mary guy tries to leave, and they cut off his finger. And for one of the courses, they take them all outside and make the men run, and they chase them. And
the thing that I'm thinking about at this point in the movie is actually called out, which is again why I think this movie is so cleverly written, is because I felt like it was always one step ahead of me and even anticipating what I as a viewer was going to think and then answering it in a satisfactory way. And one of the things I'm thinking, like, she's the only one who is, just like completely not on board. He, as soon as this guy kills himself in front of everybody, they are all suitably shocked. This isn't such a parody that everyone goes and, oh, jolly good show, like they all think this is effed up, and many of them try to leave like the old guy. But they all he's like very sort of convinced, like, everybody sit down, don't worry, this is part of the menu, this is all part of the menu. And you parse it through what the critic was saying earlier and what she kind of says in order to calm herself down as well as her compatriot. Like, look, it's probably just fake. Like, this is, what he does. He puts on a performance.
Right.
This is part of the performance. It's all meant to evoke this emotion. Well, she's right. But this is very real, what's happening to them. And you have to be stupid to not see that at some point if you're in this situation. As he hangs his angel investor outside and dips him in the water. All this crazy shit happens. And these people more or less go along with it. They're not happy about it, but they are putting up their own barriers. You know what I mean? It's like their own.
There are heavies. Like, there are a few
they're blocking them and stuff.
Yeah, like blocking the doors and stuff. But the chef even calls this out later.
This is what I'm getting to. Yeah. She runs out. He gives her like an errand to run. So she goes out to run the errand, but she secretly goes to the chef's house, which they clearly anticipated because there's somebody watching her. But anyway, and she runs across an old room of his, looks like kind of dressed up like very sparsely, but maybe with trinkets and things from his childhood. She sees a picture of him serving a burger when he was like 16. It says like my first
he was
job or
employee
something.
of the month. Yeah.
Employee of the month at just a burger flipping place. And then she finds a CB radio, which she calls because they don't have cell phone service on the island, but she uses a CB to call for help. And sure enough, a boat comes by and you can see it through the window because they all have a view of the water. And the chef says to all of them,
You'll be tempted to ask him for help, to plead even. This would be unwise. He cannot help you. Ask yourselves two things. One, if you really want to be responsible for the death of an innocent man. And two, ask yourselves this entire evening, why didn't you all try harder to fight back, to get out of here? Honestly, you probably could have. Something to think about.
And that's exactly what I was thinking. But you know what I mean? It's like there was just such a... They didn't want to be rude. They wanted to think the best. And this is how people get lured into doing things or being party to things or not opposing things that when in hindsight, like, were you stupid? But this happens like to people. It's like cult type behavior.
It would happen to me.
It's life. It would happen to me too, And so this is the bit of the movie that just like I was thinking about for quite a while. As much as this is a parody and as absurd as it kind of is, there is that aspect of it that's, it's not actually that far out of the realm of possibility given the right circumstances. True. And so, so then going back to that guy's suicide, like that just fucking bothered me. I'm sorry. I just like had a hard time sleeping just thinking about the idea of it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I don't know. Maybe maybe the I don't know what I want to say like the ridiculousness. It's not that ridiculous. Like it is within the realm of possibilities, and these types of things do happen. I get what you're saying. I just think for me it was far enough removed from reality.
Right.
That I don't know, whatever reason, it didn't bother me as much. One of the okay, so when it comes down to it, at the very end, I don't remember what she chooses, but he ultimately decides, like, no, you're one of them, go out, it's time for the final course or something. And she objects and says, I don't like your food.
I don't like your food, and I'm still hungry.
Yeah, I don't like your food, and I'd like to send it back. You've taken the joy out of eating. Every dish has been an intellectual exercise, not something you want to sit and enjoy, blah, 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 blah. You failed, and you've bored me, and the worst part is I'm still hungry.
It's really smart, actually.
It's
smart.
Genius. And then he's like, well, you're still hungry? Well, what do you want? And she's like, what do you have? He's like, we have everything. And she says, I want a cheeseburger. And a real cheeseburger, not some fancy deconstructed bullshit.
Oh, and this is where Ralph Fiennes is such a good actor. Like, you just see this, like, very subtle light come on behind his eyes. Like this is something that he's been waiting for his whole life, for somebody to ask him for a cheeseburger. Because he looks at her, and suddenly, it's just, again, it's very subtle acting. But then he goes, I will make you the best cheeseburger that you've ever eaten.
Uh-huh.
And he goes, and God, it looked like the best cheeseburger.
Well, that's the thing. The way that because it's filmed the same way that they have filmed the construction of every other dish.
Yeah.
And when you film something like that, it looks beautiful. And I think that's kind of part of the point, I think that's part of the point that they're trying to make.
Yeah.
But he does. He makes her this gorgeous diner-style cheeseburger with, like, grilled onion and American cheese because she specifically asked for American cheese. And he's like, American cheese is the best cheese for a cheeseburger.
Yes, exactly. It's like he's under a spell at this point. It's so cute. I love it.
But even that, I think, is, kind of American cheese is, everybody, the whole world looks down their nose at American cheese, which is fair because it's really not even cheese, but it is mighty good on a cheeseburger.
Oh, it's perfect. It really is true. I mean, there's no better cheese.
But I think that's kind of the point. Like, he is, as fancy as he is, the true artist in him knows that American cheese is the best cheese for a cheeseburger.
And that cheeseburger's amazing.
And he serves it to her, and she takes a bite of it. She's like, that's a cheeseburger. It's great. But she's like, but yeah.
I think my eyes were a little bigger than my stomach. Can you wrap this up to go? And so she's got this little loophole. And this is where I've seen some people are critical of the ending because they think it's almost too clever. I disagree. I think the whole movie was mining this, so I didn't have a problem with the ending at all. In fact, I thought it was very clever.
I think it's very clever because I think that in the context of the movie, we're supposed to believe that she genuinely touched something in him.
Yes.
She reminded him of the passion that he felt for serving people food that they actually enjoyed. And I think that either he was rewarding her for being clever or she earned her exit.
Yeah, I feel like,
she gets it. All right, you can go. And I thought that it was really cool that she walks out and she has a moment of pause where she looks back because she realizes that everybody else, she hasn't freed anybody but herself.
They're all going to flame up in a giant s'mores party.
And they all kind of look at her like, it's cool. Go ahead.
Right. They're like, go for it, girl.
The older lady, Judith Light, even kind of waves her out, like go. And she does, and she goes away on a boat, and they start the last course, which is s'mores that they pour all over the floor and drape all over the guests who just sit there. Now, this is one of the weird parts. Like, it almost seemed like they accepted their fate. Like, he's right. We should definitely just burn up.
No, I mean, it's definitely a movie, at this point. Like, I mean, it's a metaphor. It's a whatever. It's making its social commentary, I didn't expect this to be realistic, 'cause,
right.
So I give it a pass for this.
And she sits on the boat watching the island burn, eating her leftover cheeseburger, and then that's the end of the movie. And I thought that it was a very satisfying ending. And, watching they're wearing like chocolate caps and watching the chocolate melt down over their faces as the flames surround them. It looked really cool, and it was a neat ending, and I liked that. But two things bothered me. First of all, we didn't talk about the fact that Tyler knew all along that they were all going to die.
Yes.
And so he paid an escort to join him knowing that she would die.
Yes, that's why he's the biggest douche.
Yeah, and obviously the chef doesn't like that because he humiliates Tyler and convinces him to kill himself.
Well, that was my favorite part of the movie, by the way.
Yeah?
I laughed out loud. I must have laughed for a good solid 5 minutes. Poor Tyler. The chef picks him up, and he's like, you know all about food, don't you? You're a real foodie, aren't you? Like, you've watched all the shows. You understand. You've studied me and all that. And he puts him in a chef's outfit, and you see Tyler like this is the best thing that's ever happened to him on his life. And he says, I'm going to write your name on it. He even pulls out like a Sharpie, writes Tyler on it, in this janky way. And he says, Tyler's going to give us a cooking demonstration. Come into the kitchen, Tyler. We're all curious to see all of your technique. And so he forces everybody to wander around him, and Tyler is just flipping out. He's like, okay. And he just like grabs a thing of lamb. He's like, what do you need, Tyler? What do you need? Lamb. Okay, give him some lamb. But we've got everything, Tyler. What else do you need? Some garlic or whatever. He's like, shallots. Okay. And then as he's looking over it, Tyler, who doesn't know what the he's doing, is sitting there. He's like, very interesting, innovative way of cutting shallots. I've never seen this before, Tyler. Thanks for teaching that to us. And then what's done is like undercooked thing. And it's
gross.
It's so gross. And I laughed so hard at this bit because you hate Tyler
right
all the way through this. Like you say, by this point you've learned that he deliberately brought her on. Now you kind of know why. It's not just because he's bought into everything the chef's saying, but he knows he's the only person there who knows they're all going to die. So he's just going to eat and eat and eat and take the pictures and do whatever.
But why? Why is he taking pictures?
Yeah, the pictures thing is weird, right? Like, why would he do that?
That doesn't make any sense. You're going to be dead at the end.
I just thought it was probably just his habit, right? This is this guy who just
an
does this all the
obsessive
time.
kind
He can't
of. I mean,
keep
there's clearly something wrong with him. He's not right in the head. That bothered me a little bit that he was taking pictures. The other thing that bothered me is I don't think that all of those people deserve to die. Now,
yeah. Well, they kind of call that out too, though, and make fun of it.
Well, right. The assistant, the movie star's assistant, her only sin was graduating from college without student loan debt. That was her only sin.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
I guess.
I mean, this is where it just got silly. It was just a joke, though. He goes to John Leguizamo and he says, you were in that movie. You did that movie, Calling Dr. Sunshine. And on my one day off from work, when I needed nothing more than rest, I watched that movie and it was terrible. So this is why you're dying. And then the assistant pipes up and he's like, well, where'd you go to college? Brown? Student loans? No, you're dying too.
And I guess Judith Light was, rich and unappreciative, but it's not like she cheated or anything.
No,
I don't know.
You're right. It doesn't all track. Some of it's just there just to be funny, for sure.
Right. And that's fine because overall, I really, really liked this movie.
Oh, God,
I was really
loved
looking.
it.
I was super looking forward to it, and I was not disappointed. Alan watched it with me. He found it very interesting, offered to watch it with me again for the podcast.
I have at least 2 friends I want to show this to.
I would argue that it is a horror movie. There's some
sure.
violence and things and things that we glossed over that we didn't mention at all. Like there's a big fight between Elsa and Margot. A very bloody, violent fight. There's so much plot. It's very plot-driven. It's very character-driven. So we can't do it justice at all. Even on a second viewing, you pick up on so much more. It's a very good movie. I would very much recommend it. And I think that even people who are not necessarily big-time horror fans might still like it. It's good.
Because I think this captures a little bit of the cultural zeitgeist. Like, I think by now most all of us are familiar with this scene because these movies, these shows are so popular on television. You know what I mean? I just think at all levels. That's why I watched it. I loved it. I was like, this movie I felt like was kind of made for me. And it absolutely is horror. Is anybody saying it's not horror? God.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean.
It's just, yeah.
It's like cult type.
I guess I don't know why I feel the need to defend it on that level, because it is horror.
Well, it was nice coming into it not knowing much about it at all. Like, I didn't.
Yeah,
man, so much to unpack here. It's too bad we don't have that much time.
Yeah.
It was a good time. Well, thank you again, Craig, for suggesting this, and thank you guys for listening to us, tuning in another week. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with a friend. If there's a movie you would like us to do, please go online and just Google Two Guys and a Chainsaw Podcast. You can find us on any one of our social media areas, or you can join our patrons, patreon.com/Chainsaw Podcast, and get some extra features, a couple mini-sodes every month, and influence the requests that we do. Until next time, I'm Todd.
And I'm Craig.
With Two Guys and a Chainsaw.